Notice the horizontal line on the remote controller. The buttons above this line are used to select and define the rescue scenario to be run. The buttons below this line are used to control the scenario once it begins to run. Always begin setting up a rescue scenario by pushing once on the big button in the center. Once you've selected and defined your scenario, push it a second time to transmit the scenario to the Trainer 2. This button is called the View Enter button because the first time you push it, you can view the current scenario defined at the remote controller. The second time you push it, the remote controller transmits or enters your scenario settings to the Trainer 2. You can be sure the scenario has been transmitted to the Trainer 2 if it responds by flashing the red indicator light once. When you turn the remote controller on, the green lights will show you the current scenario setting for 8 seconds. While these lights are on, you can change scenario settings at the remote controller prior to transmission. Choose your scenario with the Scenario Selection button. Every time you push it, the green lights will indicate a change to a new scenario. Scenarios 2 through 5 are fixed. The paired icons next to each light indicate what the first and second heart analysis in each scenario will be. Scenario 2 will call for a shock on both the first and second analysis. Scenario 3 will call for no shock on the first analysis and then a shock on the second. Scenario 4 will call for a shock on the first analysis and then no shock on the second. Scenario 5 will call for no shock on both the first and the second analysis. The first scenario is not fixed but manual, which means you can call for a shock or no shock as you proceed through the rescue. The CPR metronome button to the right of the View Enter button determines whether CPR metronome beeping and prompting will be on if the light is lit or off if the light is not lit. The CPR metronome should be turned on whenever you are training with CPR D-pads. Turn it off whenever you are training with stat pads. This will cause the Trainer 2 during the CPR interval to act like the clinical AED Plus with stat pads attached and say every 15 seconds,
"Continue CPR,"
instead of beeping and prompting, "Push harder" and "Good compressions." Now suppose you want to run a scenario that presents a successful rescue using CPR D-pads in which the first heart analysis advises a shock and the second one calls for no shock because the victim has been resuscitated.
Shock delivered. Start CPR.
Push the View Enter button once to put your remote controller in setup mode. Select Scenario 4 with the Scenario Selection button. Push the CPR metronome button once to turn on the CPR metronome used by the CPR D-pads. The scenario is now set up, but in the remote controller only. Point the remote controller at the Trainer 2 and push the View Enter button a second time to transmit the scenario to it. The red status indicator light will flash once to indicate that the new scenario has been communicated to and accepted by the Trainer 2. This completes the scenario setup. Your Trainer 2 will continue following this scenario until you transmit another one to it using a remote controller. Even if you turn the unit off and change batteries, when you turn it back on, it will follow this same scenario.